Welcome to another episode, everyone. Corcoran State Prison, 1995. The Muslims brutally attacked a couple of Crips. And yes, indeed, the Crips savagely responded and retaliated. Well, Jabari was a Muslim that had hit the yard that everyone seemed to know. Jabari used to be a gang member. I forget exactly where he was from. Swan, Pueblo, something like that, one or the other. And he was in jail, in prison, incarcerated for a particularly heinous crime. And he had been down for some time. And even while he was down, he had been known for putting in work on behalf of the Damus, the Bloods. Jabari was a very strong individual, very solid. And on his case, they did not have much evidence against him, and in fact, had let it be known to him that if he told, he would go home. But Jabari stayed down. He never told on his case, even though he really was innocent on the case. He did not have much to do with it. Wrong place at the wrong time. But he knew the individuals that were involved in the case. But he never said anything. And because he didn't say anything, he ended up getting a lot of time. He knew that this was a possibility, and yet he kept his mouth closed. So everyone respected Jabari. After being down for 13, 14 years and wanting to go home and had put in work on behalf, again, of his membership, of his faction, his name was solid on the street and there in prison, he decided to give up the flag and turn Muslim. Now, people often find God in prison. We'll get to that in the upcoming video. People often find God in prison, one God or another. And sometimes, of course, these individuals are faking the funk, looking for an escape, a way out of prison, and sometimes they try to take the easy way out. As soon as they get into trouble, they find God all of a sudden. However, you have those individuals who are very serious about their religion. When they give up the gang banging and say that they are now Muslim, they really mean that. My cousin is a prime example, and Jabari is also a prime example. Many people couldn't understand and couldn't believe that the Jabari, of all people, would turn in the flag, would say that he no longer gangbanged because he was so well known, had such a strong reputation on the street and in prison. And most of the time, you rarely find individuals who have both strong reputations on the street as well as behind the walls. There's one or the other, but not both. Jabari was the exception. He had respect coming from both quarters. And he was so steeped into his hood and into the gang-banging culture that he had committed many criminal acts there behind the walls. Well, even grisly, ghastly crimes Jabari had been accused of. But he had had enough. And he let his comrades know that he was giving it up and turning Muslim. Not to try to stop him, that he was serious about this, and that was that. And he stuck to that. He became a Muslim about 4 years prior to this incident, and he was devout, a dedicated Muslim. And the Muslims there in prison, well, they indeed do have a card, a faction. Some call them a prison gang. I wouldn't say that they are a prison gang, but they are strong, structured, and they can and will get violent in defense of one another. F-Bone, let's call him, was a Crip. And he moved in next to Jabari. Jabari had already been in that cell for some time. F-Bone was there, and many people felt like F-Bone on the yard, even though he had not been there that long, was some type of bully, extraed out, and carried himself in a way that said he was looking for trouble on a regular basis. I don't recall exactly where F-Bone was from. That's not even his name. That's his name for the purposes of this video, F-Bone. He was from 4 Trey gangster, 4 Deuce gangster, one of the gangsters. And he was a strong individual there on the yard who oftentimes found himself on the wrong side of people's agitation, people's temper, because of the way that he walked around the yard. But everyone just let F-Bone be. That's okay, as long as you don't approach me with this aggressiveness. But one day, he decided, with unbeknownst to his car, he didn't let anyone know that he was going to approach Jabari and tell Jabari that he was making too much noise next door during his prayers. Now, the Muslims, I believe, pray 5 times a day or so, and they take this prayer very serious. I believe at times Jabari was speaking out during some of these prayers, kneeling down on his rug and, saying whatever they say. And he did this 5 times a day. And I guess one of the prayers was real late at night, very late. I know when the sun went down or whatever. Maybe it was 2 in the morning. I'm not sure. Maybe a Muslim can tell me exactly what time you all pray. But it was at an ungodly hour that the man was praying, Jabari, as far as F-Bone was concerned. But this is a part of his religion, and this is the time that he prays. And he had been doing this, and no one had a problem with it. His previous neighbor did not have a problem with it. Again, he had been in that cell for some time. F-Bone just moved in not long ago. And you didn't tell anyone that you were going to approach this man. Now, Jabari is well loved here on the yard. He looks out for brothers when they don't have anything. He's teaching brothers workout routines. He has some brothers reading the Quran. He's preaching against gang membership. He has really turned it in. You can tell that Jabari is not one of the ones who is faking it, who is perpetrating some sort of fraud as a means to getting home sooner, fooling the administration, having them believe that you have changed and become saved in some way. All the time, you're still a very involved violent gang member. And again, some individuals do this. They get in there, oh yeah, I'm a Muslim now, I'm a Christian. We're going to get into that. I know some individuals who have done this, but they were just perpetrating a fraud, and they were eventually exposed. But Jabari, however, I could tell, at least in my mind, that he was not faking. He, just as strong as he was a blood, when he was a member, he was just as strong as he was just as dedicated to being a Muslim. You often saw Jabari walking around the yard with his Quran and speaking to brothers about changing their lives, but not in any soft way. He was always strong, direct, intelligent, articulate, and talked about how gangbanging was just self-destructive. And you always got the feeling that Jabari had the power, the aura, to change the world. And F-Bone is really just some uncouth thug, prone to Neanderthal type of behaviors, and apparently had a proclivity for bullying. And he thought that because Jabari was no longer a member, and instead was now a religious individual, that he was somehow not a man, or still not a gangster, but he's still a man. These things never leave you. You can hide him and try to bury him, but it is always there. That monster inside of you, that man inside of you. If you was once a gangster, a strong member, and you never folded ever, stayed down, never snitched, could have snitched, didn't snitch, was in prison for decades for a crime he didn't even commit and could have been home long ago, but didn't even think, didn't even blink an eye about turning in his fellow comrades, his brethren. This is an individual who stayed down from day one. And yet, someone who's just come to prison decided that he was going to test his manhood because he was no longer a member. So Jabari told him, I pray. I'm serious about my religion, brother. And I pray every day, 5 times a day. I've been praying right here in this cell. No one has had a problem with it. Now, I believe in respect and keeping the peace. And so I'll do what I can to lower the tone if it's bothering you. Okay, fine. But just a couple of days later, he confronted Jabari again, saying that he had not lowered his tone and that he can still hear him and was disturbing his program there in his cell. He can hear him through the vent. And essentially told Jabari he's not going to keep asking him to quiet down. Jabari said, well, what do you mean by that? And F-Bone told him, well, you're not a member anymore, bro. You know, you're not a blood. You know, I ain't tripping. We ain't tripping, bro. I'm a member, bro. I'm a Crip. I'm a member. I got all my people. I got all my people with me. You're a Muslim. They not that deep on this yard. They not, come on, bro. You know, we're not trying to go there. But he really sort of threatened him slyly, covertly. But Jabari caught it. And he went to F-Bone's people. And he went to his people. And he explained to the Muslims what was going on there in the cell block with F-Bone. He was doing his prayers and that the man had approached him more than once about quieting down his prayers. And that when he had done that, he approached him yet again, demanding or else that he lower his tone or even just stop with that particular prayer at night, just do it earlier. But again, they have a particular time that they do their prayers. Because F-Bone had even told his people that. Then why can't the dude just do the prayer, that last prayer, a little bit earlier? But even his people told him that's not going to happen. Because Jabari had went to his people and told them, and again, told his own people what was going on there in the cell block. So they said that they were going to holler at F-Bone and let him know, man, get off this dude about doing this prayer, bro. Everybody got love for Jabari, even the Crip, because he's no longer a blood. And when he was one, they all respected him then. Again, a very solid individual. Very strong. F-Bone, on the other hand, he has nowhere near the respect that Jabari does, not even from his own brethren. So he's taking a chance, approaching Jabari in this fashion with these subtle threats. But he continued down this very slippery road nonetheless. And the tension on the yard between the Muslims and the Crips, it was palpable. You can touch it and cut it with a knife. But they carried on about their daily business and their daily routines until F-Bone one morning, once again, this time went to Jabari's cell when they had cracked his door, whispered in the crack and told him, bro, I'm sick of what you're doing. You kept me up all night. You're doing this on purpose. I don't know who you think you are, I'm finna holler at your people, bro. They got to get you off the yard. Now he's threatening to get Jabari off of the yard. This means two things. That either the Muslims, once he approaches them, does F-bomb and tell them the situation and demand that Jabari is removed from the yard, either the Muslims oblige and remove their own people viciously, savagely from the yard, Jabari, or they have to attack the Crips, or the Crips are going to attack them. It's going to go up. One or the other. Once he said this, once he said, I want you off the yard, I'm going to tell your people to get you off the yard. Not just I'm going to go holler at your people about you and let them handle it. They can handle it however they're going to handle it. They might tell them to run some laps. Or they, of course, they might say, he ain't done nothing wrong. He praying. We Muslims, bro. That's what we do. The Muslims are not that deep on the yard. But there are a few of them. And again, these are some very strong individuals that are on the yard. They don't want to be violent, but they have been and will be. Particularly, again, in defense of their religion and their people. They take these things and their prayers very serious. And they're not going to be bulldozed by anyone or any gang in prison or on the street. And so when F-Bone went to the Muslims and told them that he wanted Jabari off of the yard, the Muslims, of course, had already been made aware of the fact that him and Jabari had not been getting along over this prayer situation that F-Bone had been accusing Jabari of getting too loud. And as far as Jabari were concerned, F-Bone had threatened him already in a subtle manner. So everyone is already aware of the conflict. Again, the tension on the yard, you can see it. That's how strong and visible it is. And so when F-Bone approaches the Muslims and says, I want him off the yard, they were not surprised that the conflict had continued on and had not been resolved. But as far as the Muslims were concerned, it was not because of Jabari. It was because of F-Bone. And because, as far as they were concerned, the Crips could not keep F-Bone in line, in control. That the Crips had even said that they were going to holler at F-Bone and let him know to leave Jabari the hell alone. Let this man pray like he's been doing for years in this cell. He takes his religion serious. He's not trying to disrespect you or bother you. Leave this man alone. Yet he continues to approach him, threaten him, and now threaten to have him removed from the yard, which means that his people is going to have to attack him and remove him from the yard. Jabari knows what this means. Oh, you're going to have me attacked by my own brethren because I'm praying, but Jabari is no fool. Again, an ex-member, an ex-gangster, but a current man. And he understands the politics involved in prison and how things work. And he knows that the Muslims have his back. Hell, the Bloods may even still have his back. These dudes still have a lot of love for him, but he doesn't want the Bloods to have his back because he's really done with that. He's not straddling the fence. But he is expecting the Muslims to have his back. And they indeed do. And they let it be known to F-Bone and the powers that be that they were not going to get rid of Jabari. It was not going to happen. And if it's up, it's up. That if anything, they needed to get rid of F-Bone, the person who was the cause of all of this conflict. The standoff, well, it was tense. And finally, the Muslims said, well, we'll do the unthinkable. We will attack F-Bone in the kitchen. It was about 3 Muslims that worked in the kitchen, but they were Crips that worked in the kitchen as well. Yeah, a couple of nights after F-Bone had went to the Muslims and demanded that they remove Jabari from the yard. They decided they were not going to wait any longer. They were not going to wait on the Crips to attack them. Instead, they would go on the offensive, they being the Muslims. And right there in the kitchen, they attacked F-Bone violently. And at first, no weapons were involved. Jabari was not involved either. He was inside of his cell. But they attacked him. First, one Muslim attacked him, and then F-Bone tried to pick up something, a tray or something, when it was just a one-on-one. And at that point, as he's swinging the tray, another Muslim jumped in. And then another Muslim jumped in, bro. And one of them indeed had a weapon. And they hit F-Bone, sending a clear message that the war was on and that they were unafraid of the numbers. That F-Bone had went too far and that the Crips had done nothing about it. Instead, asking to get rid of one of their ranking members who they had an abundance of love for and was willing to risk it all. Well, certainly the Muslims knew that the Crips would respond and retaliate. Now, when they were attacking F-Bone, another Crip indeed saw what was going on and jumped in and helped F-Bone. But the damage had already been done. He had been hit. And the Muslims, really, they had no damage. Nothing was wrong with them. Even though the other dude that jumped in to help, they were the aggressors. They had a weapon and they used it. They essentially declared war. And the Crips knew that they had to respond and respond quickly. Even though they believed also that F-Bone was in the wrong. Regardless, it's beyond that now. Wrong or not, it's for them to deal with, not for you all to attack our homeboy. And so they set their sights, so did the Crips, on Jabari. They had love for Jabari. The Bloods did, the Muslims did, the non-affiliates did, the Hispanics did. Everyone loved Brother Jabari. But the Crips felt like Jabari had put the hit out, sanctioned it, subscribed to the beatdown, and therefore was complicit and needed to be taught a lesson. But Jabari, well, he was not going to go down easy. Again, this stuff never leaves you. And in part 2, I'll bring you the Crips attacking Brother Jabari in retaliation for the Muslims, well, pretty much savagely attacking F-Bone. They left him leaking. The other Crip didn't make out too well either. They had sent a clear message that they were unafraid and would not be disrespected by any faction, no matter how deep they were, how vicious, dangerous, and violent the gang were. They were ready to stand their ground. The message was clear to me and clear to everyone else as well. But the Crips decided that they had to send a message of their own. And they responded quickly. I would say that they sent a message. And I'll bring you the response of the Crips and part 2 of the Crips respond and retaliation to the Muslims. There was a lot of blood left when it was all said and done, a lot of carnage all over someone. I'm not not here to judge who really ignited this whole situation. But you'll be surprised on who continued or who actually shed most of the blood when it was all said and done. Part 2, it's ahead. Stay free, people.